Sono al mall 83 per prendere la barca che fa il giro di Manhattan. Sono qua e l'ho pagata con Go City Card. Basta andare alla biglietteria qui dietro, presentare il codice a barre, questo qua, il QR code, e vi daranno il biglietto. Adesso sono le 14:42, sono entrato in fila un quarto d'ora fa, c'era già un sacco di gente. Partirà alle 15:30, questo è il molo, è tutta la fila.
Walk away. I didn't drain one in your face.
Random, but they're actually placed according to strict Coast Guard safety configuration guidelines. So the seats have to stay put. You do not have to stay put. You got mobility on this boat now and during the trip, but when moving around the boat, use the handrails on the staircases, and always keep at least 1 foot on the deck at all times for safety and balance. By the way, the boat's rocking a lot more now because we're at the dock than we'll be out on the water. This is honestly the roughest part of the trip. Now we come back to the dock later, don't forget that, but the good news is we're not taking the dock with us. We leave this beautiful piece of concrete behind. Your view should appreciate substantially after that point. And as far as views go, remember, these seating areas are not standing areas because while you're standing, others are sitting. They do not pay to see you or your backside, so eyes in motion should stay in motion. And then you want to go over the rail, take a picture, great, but then keep it moving. All right, these are not standing areas either. We have standing areas on the boat. They're on the lower level, one's in the back, one's in the front. Now the bow of the ship, that's what you came in on, that's actually off limits when we're undocking or docking. But once we're away from the dock, we're not taking the dock with us. One of our boats, the Manhattan, that was the third boat on the scene. Actually brought the boys from Rescue 1 from the base here in Hell's Kitchen out to the river, so they have to wait.
Quello là è il Washington Bridge.
They didn't go in the river because there were people swimming in the river, also malrepresented. This detail for someone on IMAX. And there are scenes where they're showing archival news footage on TVs in the background. There you can see the Circle Line and the other boat. It wasn't just one, it was like a circle of boats around the plane. As the plane was in motion, that plane was in motion as we got the people. It was down past that great pier to your right now, Pier 76 by 36th Street. That's about 3/4 of a mile down the river before we got the last person slowly off received Flight 1549 at a museum in North Carolina. No, not the Intrepid. No, not that. Not the museum next to where it landed. The plane's on it. Okay, way touchdowns. Hey, we're on the Hudson River. Hey, look back behind us. That's the George Washington.
Soldiers of World War I, World War II, you're shipped to Europe, you're shipped from there. Back the Americans fighting the trenches of World War I, was there 3 places you end up in that? Hell, so we figured we could do this a lot faster. I mean, at least the target was this was the wrong. We did a detailed copy of We kept the clock. Why? Also work the clock, that's why. Just do. And we kept that structure going down the park. See, it looks like a big red church with a clock on your body. But that's another old terminal. Even older boat we had changed from train to boat. The train has gone out of Liberty Terminal since the 1960s. The tracks are gone. Boats do go out of there. During the day, you can get boats from the Jersey side from the State Park. The Liberty Terminal opened in 1889. Then, that was the biggest railroad terminal in the United States. 14 sets of tracks going all over North America. It was built side of the Statue of Liberty, just there. Well, it's really built to service something. It was going to open 3 years later. We knew it was going to open 2 years later. It was a new federal immigration facility on Ellis Island. So when people think of immigrants going to Ellis Island, I think they assume they then go live in the Lower East Side or Brooklyn. Some of them did. But most of them went out to that terminal. I mean, over 80% of them went out to that terminal to all over North America. In fact, not just by train. In those days, they have a line of trucks next to the trains to deliver straight to a factory, straight to a job, not even to, including my own people. For like many Americans, I'm an immigrant stalking. That's on both sides. On my mother's side is earlier. Her people would have gone into Battery Park, Castle Clinton. That's where you get the most down hills on the other side for the day. That was a Ford. That's Ellis Island. That's my grandparents on my father's side. They came from the one of our. They came under very desperate circumstances to very So the federal government decided to take over the processing of immigrants away from the states, away from the little ports up and down the eastern seaboard, build one big facility on an island, there on your right, where the immigrants would be processed. And I mean processed. Boatloads of immigrants come every day, all throughout the day. Ellis Island would sometimes process over 50,000 immigrants in a day. Herd them through the Great Hole and check their names against the manifest. The names had to match too. Nobody got their name changed to Ellis Island. That was against the rules. Now they would check you for medical issues, and if you had any, they had hospitals for you to get better in. But you had to get better before they let you off the island. That could take months. But you generally got through. And over 98% got through. But in 1924, we changed our immigration policy. That's really when we shut the door. Ellis Island stays open for another 30 years. By that point, more as a place for holding illegal immigrants awaiting hearings and the like, more a prison than a processing center. 1954, it closed entirely. It's abandoned. It's left to the pigeons. It was in ruins. So what happened? Some of you might recall, in the 1980s, we did a big project of fixing up the Statue of Liberty for our 100th anniversary. That was a charitable effort spearheaded by the businessman Lee Iacocca. Yeah, great job raising money. Only problem is you raised too much money. Well, that's the problem with charities, because you can't give the money back. But you can roll it over in a likewise worthy project. That'll get the press off your back. And we were so psyched about fixing up the statue. It was easy to get psyched about fixing up Ellis Island, which we did. Reopening in 1990 as a museum of the immigration era. And now we're coming up on the Statue of Liberty. She's wearing green today. Well, it's not her original color. Okay, that's a copper statue. When she opened in 1886, she was the color of a brand new penny. The brand new penny out by saltwater is turned pretty green pretty fast, which is a patina which protects the metal. Now the metal's not very thick. You take two pennies and press them together. That's as thick or as thin as the metal ever gets. So, how's it not blow over this windy harbor? Well, it's all held up by a big iron infrastructure inside. And that's the thing. We always credit the artist, Frederick August Bartholdi, who designed the statue, as we should. But don't forget the engineer who designed the infrastructure. That's Gustav Eiffel. Yes, the same Eiffel who later did the Eiffel Tower. And I think you have credit for this project. We're going to do it again without a statue wrapped around it. More people remember my name. And that worked. Now, the statue is a gift to this country for the people of France, not the government of France. Our governments weren't getting along then. Also, both governments are a little wary of this strange project, which is a political statement after all. But the people of France liked the idea. They raised the money, built the statue in its entirety in France, and broke it down about 300 pieces over here. Over here, we, the people, we had to pay for the base. Our government decided to finally accept the strange gift, and they threw in the island, because this was just a little island with a little fort built for the War of 1812 we had never used, and the fort's still there. The bottom level of the base, the star shape, that's Fort Wood. But above and beyond that fort, our government would not put another dime into this project. But the people of America liked the idea. They raised the money for the base, designed by Richard Morris Hunt. Whole thing, statue and base, opens in 1886, is entitled Liberty Enlightening the World. It's a personification of the American ideal of liberty as a Roman goddess, standing triumphant over slavery. Her foot is crushing a chain representing the chains of slavery. This conceived in the wake of the American Civil War. She's showing the triumph to the whole world, the spikes in her crown shining out to the 7 seas, the 7 continents. She looks like she's looking at the bridge there. That bridge wasn't there until 1964, but beyond the bridge is the Atlantic Ocean. She's looking beyond the ocean to Europe, to the old world, showing them what the new world has achieved. That's what the statue means, that's what the artist intended. But now the statue has another meaning, one that the artist did not intend, one that many people did not perceive at first. The one person figured out this other meaning of the statue early on, even before it went up. In 1883, they're doing a fundraiser in New York City for the base. And they contacted a local woman, a writer named Emma Lazarus, and asked her to contribute a poem to the fundraising effort. Emma Lazarus was of an interesting background. She came from an old family that could trace their ancestors. Huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. That poem was overseen in 1883 when it was read out, but 3 years later when the statue opened, they wouldn't use that. So, hey, this book liberty's got nothing to do with immigrants. But 6 years after that, Elizondo opens up, and no one could ignore or deny the sight of these boats full of immigrants sailing into Elizondo as they reach the statue on the way. All the immigrants come on top of the boat and cheer and whip out their selfie sticks and something like this. A lot like this. 6,117 feet from Brooklyn Battery. That's more than twice the length of the span of the Grasshouse Narrows Bridge. The longest in the world when opened in 1950, held there for 44 years to the Channel. It was much longer. This is the longest automotive tunnel we ride there on the world. Oh, and also we renamed it a few years back under former Governor Hugh Perry, but you know what? No offense to you, we like to know where we're going. That was Brooklyn Battery. We're going to keep calling it Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. And that's the battery to your left, that clump of trees there. To your left is Battery Park, Battery of Cannon. Even before the War of 1812, we can go back to the British colonial days as we get the mountains to protect the harbor. Oh, you see that orange boat? That's a Staten Island ferry. That's a big boat. That boat holds 6,000. Sorry. And it's a free ride both ways. So if there's anyone in the ferry terminal saying it's a $300 ticket, you just walk past that guy. He has no authority. Now that's Lower Manhattan, we call the financial district. But this used to be the whole city in the colonial days. Yeah, the British city, you can get up to where the Brooklyn Bridge is. Now it's a whole complete city, small, but more crowded city than the big city is now. But this is how it becomes the financial district. Everything about a city was down here. Now, in 1811, Wall Street was the center of town. Once we did that grid, the center of town starts moving like 10 blocks every 20 years, which is a slow walk, fast expansion. Everything moves out. The shops move out, the theater district moves out, everything moves out except the money. You don't move the money, just like the old city of London. A lot of old cities. And it becomes a financial district more by default than by design. But it's the irony, everyone moves out and they got to go back Monday morning. Because finance has always been, and still is, I'm saying it's going to change soon, it still is the biggest employer in New York City. So there's all roads lead to Rome, most subways lead to the financial district, most of the transit goes to financial district. That's why we have a boat that holds 6,000 people in a little financial district. You'd be surprised the broad range of people who work in this, that worked in this area. You'd be shocked to know I used to have an office in that way on the left. Yeah, that's back when I worked for a company called Solomon Brothers. So I'm not working there anymore. I work at Solomon. Now we're going up the East River now. You look to the left, you see actually a nice old building from 1928. It's a yellowish building with those white highlights in the center. It's a nice building, but I'm really happy. That's on the north side of Wall Street. When we get up that, we'll see down Wall Street to the end. It's not a very long street. Now Wall Street is where the Dutch built a wall. A military wall on the northern edge of their city. That's how far their city went. And they built this wall primarily to keep out the British. You guys are looking at it, you see some Dutch land, part of the rest. So they built a wall along the northern edge of the city. They put all their guns there. No guns at the south end. After the British guys had ships. So one day the British ships show up in the south end. That's what they said. So Dutch would like to do situations. And the Dutch the British even had to fire a single shot. That's why they took it down the wall, made Wall Street, took over Amsterdam, made it New York, by the way. Not for the city of New York. That was for the Duke of York, not anything New York. He didn't become King James II. Don't remember, he's the one who fired. He's not going to be on the test. And they put their church wall up there. Now their church was Trinity Church. Now we're going to see an old brownstone church at the end of Wall Street. It's where that first Trinity Church was. It's not the first one. The first one burned down a fire in the American Revolution. The second one collapsed in a snowstorm in the third times in Germany. We're going to see the third one from 1846. Now look for the cross on top of the steeple when you see it down at the end. You'll see it to your left in a moment. 281 feet above street level. Now try to imagine that cross was the highest point in New York City by far. Because back then the rest of the city, there's the church, there's the steeple, there's the cross. The rest of the city was only 5 stories. 5 stories doesn't even get you up to the block below the city. See, we were a 5-story city for most of our history because we didn't have a little bigger, but also back then we didn't use elevators. My buildings were heated. So everything was walking. Let me tell you, that's a natural thing. Because you live in the physical world walking, you forget the building, you forget the thing going to happen. Build the South Street Seaport. This is our first seaport on the left. It's an historic district, so you see early 19th century 5-story buildings right across the highway. That's how big the rest of the city was. But you also see what was bigger. Because the Wavertree is a 19th century sailing freighter. The masts of the sailing ships were much bigger than any of the buildings. Back then, the masts of the sailing ships were so high and impressive, we used to call the masts skyscrapers. was in 1883. That's pretty late in the day for a bridge. We were the biggest port in the world by the early 19th century. That was the problem. Remember, this river was full of boats, and that's how big the boats were. So any bridge that went over the East River had to go over one giant lead, so the mast of the ships could fit underneath. And no one could build a bridge this long or this high until someone invented something you now take for granted, and that's the steel cable that holds up this bridge. Somebody invented steel cable in the mid-19th century. That someone was John Augustus Rowling. He's the guy who designed this bridge. Longest bridge in the world when opened up in 1883, 1,595 and a half feet from tower to tower, using steel cage to hold the span, and steel girders to build towers taller than any building built before. Now you don't see the steel girders because no one had really done this before. People were like, big weapons out of steel not built. They're freaked out by the idea. So the Romans had to hide the steel inside stone. But it's in there, and we watched this bridge go. It took 14 years to build the bridge. We saw the steel was working. Now when the project started, it's still a 5-story city. Before the bridge is done, we're building our first skyscraper buildings. Using steel girders to build taller. Steel cables can now hold up elevators, so there's safety use inside buildings for people. We break through the 5-story limit because of the steel technology first used and proven by the Brooklyn Bridge. And as time goes on, we trust the steel more. Because now we're coming up with the Manhattan Bridge. This Brooklyn Bridge. Now you can see right through the towers of the Manhattan Bridge. So you might think, oh, the Brooklyn Bridge, it must be more sturdy. Well, think again. When I'm doing a tour on a bus, I can't take the bus over the Brooklyn Bridge. It's not allowed, it's too heavy. Nothing bigger than a van is allowed to the Brooklyn Bridge. I can take the Manhattan Bridge, and this take vans, buses, trucks, double-decker buses, and subway trains. Right now, subway trains go over the Manhattan Bridge. There it goes. And just think, now you go back home, you tell your friends you're run over by the New York subway system, and let you tell them about it. That's a cute train. See, Brooklyn Bridge, 1883 was 80% stone, 20% metal. By 1909, Manhattan Bridge, 80% metal, 20% stone. Less material, more steel, some more strength. Then, up ahead we have the Williamsburg Bridge. Okay. By now you're probably trying to figure out how many this is. Right? Brooklyn, Manhattan, Williamsburg, BMW. Just think of a car you're never going to own. You remember the bridges. They're not in order. The Williamsburg Bridge is the second of the three, and it opens 20 years after the Brooklyn Bridge. But by 1903, we're not hiding the steel anymore. It's right out there for everyone to see. It's longer than the Brooklyn Bridge. It took the length record by 4.5 feet. They just rounded up to 1,600. You know, that part was just showing off. But it's stronger. Carrying trucks and buses and subway trains. That last part is really impressive because when this opened in 1903, we didn't have any subway train running yet. See, we need to see the steel work before we can even think of subways. But by 1903, we knew it was coming. It opened in Manhattan the year after. And so it was ready for it when we got over there in 1908. And that's the thing. That's what I want you to really take away from this. See, when the Brooklyn Bridge opened, that was a bridge between two separate cities. New York in 1883 was only Manhattan. Brooklyn was its own city. And it was a major city. Now, New York was already the biggest city in the country. Brooklyn was the third biggest then. It was over 1 million people then. There's not 10 cities in the United States that are over 1 million people now. But that was the problem. See, that's the worst route of these three bridges. Whenever we get between two, frankly, rival cities, it had to go from City Hall to City Hall. Not a smart route, but you had to keep the mayors happy. But then the people in Manhattan saw the steel was working. They realized they get Manhattan out of the problem. It was end. See, Manhattan was the biggest city in the country because there were too many people living in Manhattan. This is the Lower East Side to your left. And you know what? Consider the side. The Lower East Side is still basically what it's been for 160 years. It's still the immigrant neighborhood. That's where we have our original Chinatown, which is one of the biggest Chinatowns in the country. The other two being parts of Brooklyn. Forget San Francisco, right? California. Yeah, you go to our Chinatown here, it's busy, it's bustling, it's full of people. But the thing you have to try to imagine is 100 years ago, when this neighborhood had 10 times more people living in there then than now. It's unimaginable. It's the most crowded neighborhood on the planet, literally. More crowded than modern day Calcutta. It's why we built the Williamsburg Bridge. That was not built factory spaces. 1971, they finally got a judge to agree with it. Now understand, this is very limited at first. Only in that one neighborhood that was south of Houston, by then called Soho, artists and only registered artists could legally live in their factory loft spaces. But once they started living there, they make it nicer, it starts becoming popular, then they start making it legal for everyone, so rich people move in, artists move out. So this is how it happens. Because look on your right, you see those nice shiny buildings? None of those were there 10 years ago. This is all factories. See that white building back behind you? That was a factory. That was an envelope factory. One day that folded. Artists moved in, made studios, made nicer apartments, rich people moved in, artists moved out. Let's repeat. That's how it goes. As the factories fade, go quiet, and land their honor, the buildings and become ultimately luxury. It doesn't matter what kind of business it is, honestly, whatever it's going to get stuck in water too long. Up there's the Empire State Building, but you see my favorite building, the Chrysler Building. That was the tallest building in the world in 1930, 1 year before the Empire State Building. That's my favorite. Now I show you my favorite, I gotta show you my least favorite. So that's the new one that just finished 2 years ago. That big white stick. Yeah, what is that? 432 Park Avenue. Luxury apartment condominiums. I know that part's a shock. Only 104 units. And I say only because that is taller than the Empire State Building. Yeah, and the penthouse is higher than the observation deck of the Freedom Tower. The penthouse is the top 3 floors. They sold the penthouse for 160 million 2 years ago. But you still have a chance because out of 140 units, they've only sold like 13. And none of the people who buy them ever seem to move in. But you know, it's an opportunity because I don't want to buy there either. I don't want to get that penthouse. It's got to be a it's not but that's got to be a great view. You realize that top floor is the only place in New York City where you can't see. Now, just another old one. See the one with the little golden tip back to your right with the right tower. Left upon Light Tower, tallest building in the world in 1909. See, we have the tallest building in the world at the time. The Nikon building, it's not there. The Woolworth Building in 1890. The first building taller than the State Building in 1809. But it was the first building we could call the tallest building. We held that record for over 84 years, so it's years talking about. One building after another. Some of which are still standing. Last building. Now we turn the boat around and we're going to take another break on the mic. Now as you go back into the bridge, remember the first. This is not BMW. They were up here. We're sure figuring out the bar. Also, we still got some photos going around. Photographs we got from the NSA. And something just reflected on, you know, we talk about the prison tunnel. I live in Queens. My neighbors, when they go to Manhattan, they say I'm going to the city. Most of the city, as we turn around, most of the city is not what's on your right. Most of the city is what's on your left. Brooklyn and Queens are the majority of New York City. Majority of the area, majority of the population. Anyway, with that, I'll be back on the mic in a few minutes, and then we'll be going around the boat. I'm Andy, the tour guide, wearing the bright yellow jacket. If any questions, comments, don't be shy. 40 Wall Street is granted a day. They only had 90 minutes. We'll give a day, one day at the top. Now, something I was talking about how artists moved into Soho, but then, like, by the end of the 80s, they were priced out of there. But at first, it wasn't a big problem. They just moved a little further south. There was a neighborhood below Canal Street. When I was a kid, it was called the Lemonade District. It was all wholesale markets. Hardly anyone lived there. But then the artists started moving, and they needed a cool name like Soho, but our Ink District, not a cool name. So they looked at the map, it looks like a triangle of streets below Canal Street, so they call it Triangle Below Canal or Tribeca Up. Now the artists got maybe a good 10 years out of that place, and Robert De Niro moved in there with the neighborhood, then they were priced out. So where could they go? By that point, you're out of Manhattan. So you can laugh at the name all you want. I'm sure he's laughing too. Now, if we look past that new wrinkled building, that's the New Yorker by Frank Gehry, but there's the one I like. There's starting point of view. With the pointed green roof, that's the Woolworth Building. That was the tallest building in the world in 1913. Oh, they got the scaffolding off, so I wonder if that'll be on later. It has been on for a while, but that was the first skyscraper designed to light up at night. The opening ceremony, 1913, was then President Woodrow Wilson flipped the switch. 80,000 lights came on at once. And Wilson participated in this even though he was not in New York that day. He was down in Washington, D.C. He flipped the switch by clicking a telegraph. Yes, telegraph, the great-great-great-grandfather of Twitter. Yeah, if you're wondering what's going on here, if I remember down at the South Street Seaport, we used to have a shopping mall up here at 17 that failed commercially, but that's okay, we're building something new, we're building a shopping mall. So back in 20, 25 years, we'll show you the next shopping mall, we're going to keep working until it works. You can see the church before you that's changed. You can visit the church during the day. Actually, yeah, but it'll stand up in the sun, it'll actually stand up. Here it is. There are windows in the steeple. They don't let you into the steeple anymore. In the old days, we sent the tourists to the steeple. Look at the windows over the rooftops. That was the observation deck of the steeple of Trinity Church. Also, if you ever wanted to do for New Year's Eve before Times Square, because there really is no Times Square. It was like 1954. It was New Year's Eve. That's when we first called it. Well, actually, New Year's Eve. We used to stand at the end of Wall Street and wait for the walls of Trinity Church to swing. Just imagine the same number of Times Square on New Year's Eve. You're very happy. That's what I find throws people, because they're big, 110 stories each, but they have relatively small footprints. Actually, smaller footprints than the other buildings, the other shorter buildings in the World Trade Center. 1 acre each of the site. The whole, 16-acre site initially. The entire memorial is about 5 acres, less than a third of the total site. So that gives us room to build. I mean, the new World Trade Center is not going to be as big as the old World Trade Center, but that's in New York, only in New York City. You had to point out 10 million square feet of office space, not that big. That's still more office space than most in the city. So now we see number 1. To the right of it, behind it, that's the new number 7. This is where the number gets weird. First of all, number 7 was done first. That was way back in 2006. But there's not going to be a 5 or 6 when it's all done. It's supposed to be done. This is part of the on. This is where the city really begins. And the Dutch started it. They were good at that sort of thing. But the British continued. We continued. Castle Clinton, when we built that for the War of 1812, that was on an island off the coast of Manhattan. There was no Battery Park. Battery was actually where the street is, next to Battery Park. By the end of the 19th century, we filled in the water making Battery Park. Most of the fill being crushed oyster shells. We had a lot of oysters back then. Good fill. And Lower Manhattan, which again, whereas Canal Street, that's the Holland Tunnel Tower, so that tells you where Canal Street is. Lower Manhattan is below Canal Street. 33% of Lower Manhattan is landfill of one era or another. Now, we find landfill in other parts of the island too. This island's putting on a lot of weight in its old age. It happens. But just not as high a percentage. But even when we get back to Pier 83, okay, so we're on the West Side Highway. That's 12th Avenue up there. Now, there happens to be a 19th century bar near Circle Line, over at 11th Avenue and 46th Street. It's called the Landmark Tavern. It's from 1868, when it used to be a waterfront bar. It's not anymore. And mind you, they moved the bar, they moved the waterfront. The whole swath between 11th and 12th is landfill. 11th Avenue used to be the waterfront. Actually, 5 years ago, after Hurricane Sandy, it was the waterfront again for a little while. Yeah, that all got flooded out. By the way, there's a certain architect who hates when you call that the James. Tell me what's here. The only way to plot. But here's the thing, this is the neighborhood I have the most trouble wrapping my head around. Because I remember when the meatpacking district was a meatpacking district. Okay? There's still a few companies left. There was all these meatpacking companies, wholesale. Okay, so you want to see that, you guys go down to the floor copy of it. You see Butcher's Handcuffs. chicken fish, loading up the truck, the whole thing, get it all done by the start of the business day. This is kind of the whole metropolitan area, the tri-state area. Now I remember, it was like 25 years ago, I'm walking along the place on there, minding my own business, I wanted to get home after the station. And I remember, this was at this time of day, it was dusk. So the truck drivers, the butchers, they're gone. They're all gone for the day. They're left behind the streets, red brick blood. Literally. Foolish, right? I was wandering in the neighborhood together and saw one person on that entire wall. He looked more scared of me than I was. In fact, something that would be nice, you know, remember we're here between 42nd and 43rd Street. And the grid plan is straight line, so you will see straight down, actually right across the island, on the other side of the island, 42nd Street, the bottom of the United Nations. But you'll see Times Square about a mile down the road. But it's easy to get to Times Square, just head to the light. Okay, so we're coming back. I know we're almost back home whenever I see the friendly flag of the Chinese consulate waving at me. Ni hao.